Alright, 25.
Mr. Jordan,
What?
am I your favorite?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I said yes.
Thank you.
Oh,
25. Okay. Square 24.
My favorite.
Plus 5 squared.
You like me.
Alright, what do you guys think we should do first on this one?
Use the calculator.
Okay.
I'll make the thing the same, like the 24 is the same.
Square 24 can simplify. What goes into 24?
4 and 6.
Oh, come on.
So it's
2, 3.
2 square root of
6.
6.
6.
So we have square root of 6 minus 2 square root of 6 plus 5 square root of 6. What is, so they're all like terms, we can add them together. What's the square root of 6 minus 2 square root of 6?
Negative 1.
Negative 1 square root of 6 plus 5. Negative 1 plus 5?
4.
4 square root of 6. Grant, let's just put that away. Put them away.
Just
Like
trash
in your
money,
bag,
you
or
know.
throw them away or something. Okay, 27. Mrs. Cook, Mike, who's Mrs. Cook?
What?
And then
There's Mrs. Cook's. and
Mrs. Cook's elementary, right?
Yeah. Mrs. Cook.
That's kind of confusing too.
4 is
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Yo, I know your son is Mrs. Williams.
Nope.
Alright, cube root of 7, it's number 27, plus cube root of 56. Now, unfortunately, since it's cube root, that means our calculator cube root, right? So we've got to do the tricks. What, it's kind of like the last problem, what should I do first? I should try and simplify these bigger cube roots to see if they can add together, if they're the same kind or not. What goes into 56?
1 and 56.
7 and 8. 4 and 2. 2 and 2. So remember, since we're doing a cube root, we need 3 of them. Okay, what goes into 189? What goes into 18 and 9? 9. So this is 9 times 21. What's this middle term going to become?
2 cube root of 7.
2 cube root of 7. Minus what?
3 cube root of 7.
3 cube root of 7. So the triples come out. Paxton, what are you doing?
I don't have my book, my paper.
Okay, there's a book over there. Grab it.
Piece of paper.
I said you could grab a graph paper.
I was just gonna do it when I got home.
No. Okay. What is, here we go. What's 1 cube root of 7 plus 2 cube root of 7? Minus 3 cube root of 7.
So it's 0.
0 cube root of 7, which is 0.
That's what I said. I said Z.
Okay, 29 says 2 plus, I bet we don't remember what this is.
I do. It's the FOIL.
Well, yeah, it's a FOIL problem, but you guys know what's special about this FOIL problem?
Where root, you only do some of it.
Inside outside.
It starts with a C.
Oh yeah, it cancels each other out in the middle.
Oh.
Conjugate.
Conjugates.
Yeah.
And yeah, the outside inside is going to cancel out. So you could just do first and last. If you forget that though, if you forget what you can do and not do, you just need to do the whole thing. If you did outside, inside, you get square root of 6 and negative square root of 6, and they cancel each other out. So what is first on this? 2. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is 2, and then what's last? Minus 3, because one of them is negative. And 2 minus 3 is negative 1.
Oh yeah.
When did we, do you guys remember when we used conjugates? What we used it for?
No.
Well, we're about to find out. Number 31.
For this thing to like divide.
Okay, what's wrong with 31?
There can be a square on the
With a
bottom.
square root.
Square root on the bottom, how do I fix it?
To be minus square root of 7.
Right, multiply the top and bottom by the conjugate of the denominator. 3 minus square root of 2, 3 minus square root of 2. Okay, so on the top it's basically distributive property, right? So what's the top going to become? Not 12, 18. 6 square root of 2. And the bottom is a FOIL problem, but we can get away with just the first and the last. So what's the first? 9. What's the last?
Minus 4. Wait, oh yeah.
Minus 2.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
9 minus 2 is 7.
Can you fix this subtraction? Bro, this one.
Does that make you feel good and warm in your heart?
Yeah. I forgot my glasses. These things are drinkable.
Alright, by the way, if this 7 had been like a 9, you know what I would have needed to do? You have to divide all 3 of these terms by 3. Like these. Not just these two, You have to divide all 3 by 3. But it was a 7, so we can't really do anything. There you go.
Yay!
So it's
Mr.
gone.
Foreman math. What? Oh.
It's gone. 33. Find the missing link. Express each answer as a radical and a decimal to the nearest hundred. You guys know what they mean by express as a radical? What's radical mean in math?
Right.
Like one of those like
Numbers?
These symbols that we see on every problem. That's a radical.
Oh.
It's not necessarily a square root. It could be a cubed root or a fourth root. So, anyways, so they want one answer with a radical, one answer with just a decimal. And how did we find the missing side on this guy?
Like a squared plus b squared equals c squared.
Okay, so A and B represent the what?
Like the side. The
Legs, and C represents the hypotenuse. Which side is the hypotenuse on this triangle? Left, right, bottom? Bottom. Hypotenuse. So we're missing one of the legs. I can call it A or B or something. So how would I set up this equation?
6 squared is 6 squared is 12.
12 squared. I mean 6.
So notice I put parentheses around the 6 squared is 6 because all of that is squared, not just the square root of 6. Okay, so 12 squared is 144. Now, you could do this without a calculator. It's basically 6 squared is 6 times 6 squared is 6. So it's like the 6 is squared and the square root of 6 is squared. Both of these are squared. 6 times 6 is square root of 6 times square root of 6. 36 times 6. Actually, that's kind of a big number, isn't it? 216. Did you have that memorized or you plug it in the calculator? Did it in his head. Okay, So I'm gonna get a squared by itself here, so subtract 144. And what do we get? 72. Now, what?
Square.
Right, the opposite of squaring is square root. Now technically this could be positive or negative answer, but positive only makes sense on this problem. Okay, so square root of 72, let's, what goes into 72? Oops. So it's 3 times 2, 6, square root of 2. But they also said they wanted the decimal. So this is the radical answer. This is an exact answer. That's why they like keeping it like that. But you can also get a decimal approximation. And we're rounding to the hundredths place, I believe. Yeah. So you need to plug, actually you can plug this in the calculator or this in the calculator. Just hit, you guys all know where your decimal button is on your calculator?
It's pretty close to 8 times 8. So
Yeah.
8 point what?
4, 8, 5.
Okay, what's that round to? 8.49.
49.
Let's go. It's the biblical.
Okay, that was 33, so we're on 35. I just remembered I was supposed to cut out some graph paper. 35. Find the distance between the given pairs of points expressed. Okay, how do we find the distance between 2 points like that on the graph? The distance formula. What a name. So plug stuff in for that. So notice it's x minus x and y minus y. So the x values on 35 are 1 and negative 3. So it's 1 minus negative 3. Not 1 minus 3, which a lot of people would. It's 1 minus negative 3. So yeah, it's like 1 plus 3. And then on the y's, it's 7 and 9. So it's 7 minus 9. You could just plug all that in your calculator right there, but what is 1 minus 3?
4.
Squared.
8, 12, 16.
7 minus 9?
Negative
Squared.
2. 4.
16 plus 4 is 20, and guess what?
4.
You have to sum.
Oh, good.
Right.
So
It's
2 squared 5.
2 squared of 5.
Yes, king.
Whole thing is just 2 squared.
My grandma.
Why do I
Mr.
have
Jordan,
the
can you
Jurassic Park
can you
theme
go
song
back
in my
down?
head?
Is
Or
not
not
in
there.
there.
Mr. Jordan, I need to see it.
Wait, what are we doing?
I need to see it. I can't.
What? Oh, this
Yeah.
right here.
Sorry. I wrote it on the wrong spot.
You're so trash.
Yeah, start the world stinky.
Get it right. Oh my.
They're basically bringing back everyone from
Okay.
Jurassic Park, so it's easy.
And I remember, that's probably your guys' age when Jurassic Park came out.
Really?
And I had to sit on the very front row because there was no seating. It was actually pretty cool. And then they like a scene where the Velociraptor jumped out.
Oh.
Yeah, Jurassic Park 3 was like, in my defense,
And
whenever
there
no
was
theater.
there hadn't been good computer animation before that movie, so it was amazing.
It was great for its time, and it's still great today.
Yeah.
Just like Jurassic Park 3, whenever.
Yeah. The crowd had seen, nobody had ever seen anything that looked like about real. Okay, 1, 7, negative 3, 9. So 37, we're using the same numbers. But this time we're supposed to find the midpoint, so guess what we're gonna do? Midpoint formula. So this time we're adding the x's divided by 2, that's the x coordinate. Add the y's divided by 2, that's the y coordinate. So we got two different numbers on this one.
Do we have to know these formulas?
I'm gonna leave this on the board.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
When you guys are in Algebra 2, it's gotta be in your head. I think on the Algebra 2 test, well, that's a long ways from now. You can just remember midpoint is the average of the x's and the average of the y's. Anyway, on the Algebra 2 test, I think I put like, this is number 1 on the test, like write the midpoint formula, this is number 2. And then if you get that wrong, I'll go and grade it and write the right answer in so we can use it on the rest of the test. That's how I do it. Okay, so we're supposed to add the x values together, so that's 1 and -3. And divide that by 2, add the y's, 7 plus 9. Divide that by 2. 1 plus -3 is -2, divided by 2.
Is negative.
7 plus 9, divided by 2. -1/8. You could draw these points on graph paper and then try to find out the dot that's right in the middle. Draw the points 1, 7, and -3, 9. Try to find what's in the middle. That's definitely going to be a lot more work, but because you forget how to do the formula. 39.
What's that music?
Mr. Odell, listen to something.
Shannon, how dare you say your mom? That is so rude to my culture. Okay, good. Okay, Asian.
I am Asian.
Oh.
Ciao. No, actually.
Everyone else is just like,
All right.
Just that.
yeah, don't listen to that
So,
computer.
square root of x equals 16. How do we find x? How do we get x by itself? Square. The opposite of a square root is squaring.
What?
So x equals 16 squared, which is like 256.
Sheesh, dog.
Okay. I'm going to remind you, on these kinds of problems, sometimes you got extra answers that don't actually work. Now, is the square root of 256 actually 16? Yes. But if the problem had said this, when you square both sides, you get x equals 256 for this, but the square root of 256 is not -16. This is no solution. Sometimes you get extra answers when you square both sides that don't actually
wow.
work. I don't know how I did that.
What is happening?
Magic.
I erased and moved at the same time. Okay, 41. Plus 8 equals 5. Alright. I'm guessing we forgot this. This is probably like last Wednesday or something. Maybe Tuesday.
It's so long ago.
Oh, definitely remember it.
Do you guys remember how we solved this?
Subtract.
You should
Subtract.
Yes, subtract 8. We've got the square root by itself first, and then we got rid of the square root after that. So how do I get the square root by itself? -8.
Suspicious.
Now what? Square.
Me.
What's the left side going to be when I square it?
Negative. Positive 9.
Left side.
Oh.
X plus
No.
X
To the
minus.
second.
X minus 2.
X minus 2.
Oops.
Square and square root cancel out. Okay, what's the right side?
9.
So solve for x.
That would be
11.
Okay, let's see if it works. What's 11 minus 2?
9.
Square root of 9
3.
plus 8?
No.
Oh.
Not that. So this didn't work, so no solution.
Oh yeah.
Should we have to show everyone?
Shannon, why do you keep on asking that question?
I usually ask that question. Yeah, that's her. So is that yes?
Why do you keep on push?
I didn't ask it.
I mean, general.
I guess since I didn't say it already, just on the evens.
Great.
Grant, you should do that without even asking. I've said a million times, if you can't do it in your head, you need to show certain work.
It's fine.
I've already done most of my head.
Bruh. Is that like a bunch of numbers?
Okay. 43. Actually, before.
No, 49.
Oh, 49. Before we go on. Wait, 49?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna be doing calculus.
Okay, before we go on to 49, let's look at 42. What should we do first on 42?
Minus 10.
Minus 10. That minus is on the 3, not the 10. So to get rid of the positive 10, you would have to subtract 10. Then what do we do with the negative 3? Divide negative 3. So your first two steps are minus 10, divide by negative 3. Okay, now 49, and I need to get some graph paper out for you guys. We're going to do a couple
Are we?
graphs.
Is the rest of them on the?
No, just two graphs.
Just
Yeah, two
Do we
not graphs.
divide by negative 3?
Two not graphs.
Yeah, divide by negative 3.
See, how many people are here?
Yes.
4, 6, 8, 10.
Weed. I smell on the table because it smells like weed.
What?
The devil's lettuce.
Anna, close your
My
ears.
cousin Matt, basically, we were on a fishing boat, and that's where I got the sunburn. And he told me, Grant, you're acting like you're smoking the devil's lettuce. And my sister questioned him, what is the devil's lettuce? And then he called her, you're a stupid feminist.
Is that actually what he said?
Is this actually what happened?
Yes, and then he said, and then he goes a lot of racist jokes. He goes, well, what do you call a group of people driving a car down the hill?
What?
Okay, this is a racist joke.
Yeah. Sure.
I said a group of people. This one isn't racist. I'm just giving an example.
42.
You call a group of people driving down the hill. But he said like a bunch of jokes that were not nice about people driving down the hill. What do you call
Oh,
a
we
group
did one with
of people driving down the hill?
I'm on number 38. Well, you're number 4. I'm on number 38.
So 42 after we go back.
Once you square by itself, then you raise square.
I'm gonna get help for this one, so it's fine. Okay.
Two anyway. All right. 49. Actually, I need to jump to my graph paper. All right. Here we go. You guys recall how we graphed these? What did 49 say? It said x minus 2 in the square root. All right. Let's start with this. Do you guys remember what shape this was supposed to make? Square root of x. Yeah, it's kind of a hill, is what I think of. Can anybody tell me what the minus 2 is going to do to the graph?
Make it go
Right.
Right, 2, yes. The number directly on the x affects the x motion, left and right, but it does the opposite of what you might guess. Because usually we think of negative 2 as being left 2, but it actually moves the graph right 2. And then if there's a number out here, like that would move the graph up 5. So this affects the left and right, but it does the opposite, so it goes right 2. Any number out here goes up and down, and it doesn't do the opposite. That would be like up 4. Okay. Anyways, we got two things we have to do here. One is state the domain. What is the smallest thing x could be on this problem and still work?
0.
2.
2.
Not 2.
2 because it makes the square root 0, right? And 0, square root of 0 works, but square root of negative 1 or negative anything doesn't work. So the smallest thing x could be is 2. Could it be 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 or 5. So how do I say that x can be
X greater than.
x greater than or equal to 2?
Yeah. I said that.
So that's the domain. That kind of helps us also because, remember, we have to figure out some x values to plug in. So what's the first x value I should probably plug in? 2. What would be another good x value to plug in? 3. Because 3 minus 1 is 1, or sorry, 3 minus 2 is 1, and 1 has a nice square root, so 3 works nicely. What would be another nice one? Why 6? Because 6 minus 2 makes 4, and 4 has a nice square root also. You don't have to use these. If you don't use these, you will get decimals, or if you use something smaller than 2, you'll get nothing. But these come out the easiest. So if I plug into 2 minus 2 is 0, what's the square root of 0? If I plug in 3, 3 minus 2 is 1, what's the square root of 1? If I plug in 6, 6 minus 2 is 4, square root of 4?
2.
So 2, 0, 3, 1, 4, 5, 6, 2. So the graph has moved right 2 from its normal starting position. If it was just square root of x. This is, what number is this? 49?
I just conversed you with sign language.
Is it? Is it 49? Did you say or 48?
49. This is 49.
Yeah, Romans
I
is
said
a naughty word in class.
Okay, on number 50, I'm not gonna do this, but what numbers could we plug in that would work there? Would 0 work? Yeah. Would, because negative 0 is still 0. Would 1 work?
No.
No. What would work?
Negative 1.
Negative 1. Negative 2, negative 3. So 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, those are the x values that work. So what would the domain be for next?
X is less than or equal to.
Good job. X is less than or equal to 0. Basically 0 and all the negatives work. Okay, on 51, this is multiple choice, but you're supposed to look at the picture on the right. How has that graph moved from a normal square root of x? Grant?
Plus 3 and plus 1.
How has the graph moved?
Oh, 1 up and to left 3.
Left 3, up 1. So out of those 6 options, A, B, C, D, E, F, which of those would make the graph move left 3, up 1? E is correct.
What's that noise?
Okay, so for 52, it's kind of like 51. You're writing your own function. So your answer is going to look kind of like E or one of those. But the graph is supposed to move 5 left and 3 down.
So is that right for 52?
Yes, that's right.
Why does my keys look like that? What do
Did you drink the sussy among us?
Okay, you guys still have 17 minutes. Go, go, go.